Alright, hello everyone, and welcome back to another Limbus Company video. Today we're testing out the new Pinky Sinclair against his master. Obviously, like, you can't exactly solo this fight because you're forced to bring Ryoshu. It's kind of one of the biggest problems with when it comes to the story mode in this game. You can't really solo anymore because you always... Project Moon has really enjoyed forcing you to use specific sinners in certain fights, and that's also another reason why we have to go so far back in order to actually fight the Pinky with Sinclair, because, you know, any later than, like, what is this floor? 9-33? Yeah, you just don't have access to Sinclair in the Pinky fights. So, it's like, it's fine though, you know, this fight is still pretty difficult, in my opinion. Like, the biggest challenge is actually getting to the point where Sinclair can use his evade, because once he can start using his evade, once he reaches 25 poise potency, then this fight becomes very easy. But, like, the problem is that there's just a lot of damage in this fight, and actually surviving the, like, 3 turns long enough in order to do that is quite difficult. Specifically because of the constant chip damage from, like, the burn and poison, specifically, that's the real killer. Like, Sinclair can very easily survive the actual, like, raw damage from the Nursefather in order to be able to survive that long, basically, you know? But it's the poison and the burn that end up staggering him, and then he just dies because he can't do anything after that, really. And so it's like the challenge at that point becomes, like, when exactly do you use the new Durante Ira effect, right? Because that gives him, obviously, an anti-stagger for a turn, which is very beneficial, but also it's like, it's kind of a double-edged sword too, because while it makes him immortal for a turn, it also reduces his health so much that, like, if you take too much damage, then you also get inflicted with a bunch of bleed, and that bleed damage can end up effectively killing you, even if it kills you on the next turn, even though you're immortal the previous turn, basically. And so the main difficulty comes, it's pure RNG really, as to, like, how many skills are going into Ryoshu, because Ryoshu is immortal for this entire fight as long as Sinclair is alive. So you want to use her to sponge up as much damage as possible so that you can avoid using Ira for as long as possible, basically. Unfortunately, you don't get any longer than, like, turn 3. You're kind of forced to use it on turn 3. Or at least I was in this successful attempt. Like, theoretically, I could have avoided using it for an extra turn, but unfortunately, it's like the one specific skill with the attack weight, it was targeting into Ryoshu, and therefore Sinclair could not clash against it, and that was the big thing that forced me to actually use Ira, because I probably could have survived it with an ego. I was trying to use an ego, like, to stop it instead, because Lantern gives 30 health, and that would be more than enough to tank it, but unfortunately, it's just because Sinclair couldn't clash against it, and obviously, like, the Nursefather rolled higher speed because she also inflicts a bunch of bind. I have to use Ira here, because if I don't, Sinclair gets staggered due to that AoE attack, and then he dies, basically, the next turn. And it's also a little beneficial because of the little bit of healing is nice, but ultimately the healing doesn't really matter that much because now we have the evade, and basically that means we win the game. It's not exactly guaranteed because there are a few skills that can still outroll his evade, even with unbreakable coins. Specifically the Wrath skill that reuses the coin a bunch, it can roll up to a 16, basically. So you gotta look out for that, but pretty much for the most part, the extra shield damage and the evade on top of it, it's pretty much free at this point. Obviously, you still got to use Ryoshu's defense skills the entire time, and, you know, at this point, it's like Ryoshu is actually kind of helpful because she can redirect clashes. Like, the main reason why she can't redirect clashes before is because of the bind, right? You need her to tank a lot of damage in the first early turns, and that inevitably inflicts her with a bunch of binds, so it's harder for her to redirect, and that's where all the RNG comes from. Because you need Sinclair to take as little damage as possible. And therefore you need Ryoshu to tank as much damage as possible, but it doesn't line up half the time. It is quite nice to know that, like, once Sinclair is actually built up, he can actually put up a very good fight against the Nursefather, which goes to show how strong he is, you know? Personally, I'd say he is worthy of the title of the star. Whatever it's called, I can't remember what he calls it. But anyways, these wrath skills here are the ones that I was talking about. They can actually beat his evade. Even if you break their coins, it's like they can still outroll it because she's got a lot of sanity, and then it reuses the coin like 5 times, base roll of like 14, so, or 12. Yeah, and this right here is very weird, this interaction. I have absolutely no idea why this happens right here, but even though we lost the clash, it's like we still have an evade. After further reviewing the actual video, yeah, it actually makes perfect sense now that I look at it, because we didn't actually miss the evade, right? It wasn't actually broken because since it's an unfocused volley attack, it hit Ryoshu with the final coin, which let us keep the evade, and that's the exact reason why we still have it for the second attack, even though she rolled higher than the evade. It's because it never activated on the final coin, so yeah, that's why. That's basically it. Of course, one final lost clash to close it out, because why not, right?
칼날이 잘 드네요. 아마 그 공격이 약점이었겠죠? 나 또한 염원하던 것을 무엇 하나 똑바로 이루지 못했다.
시연은 어떠셨나요? 소생은 나름의 소득을 얻었다고 생각합니다만 이들의 수급을 들고 돌아가 주인님을 뵌다면 어쩌면 이번에야말로 지혜성의 이름을 입에 올리실지도 모르겠군요.
And that's how we beat 9-33 with only the Pinky Sinclair, and also Ryoshu acting as a meat shield. He's pretty cool. He's definitely very strong, I'll say that much. Like, I'll talk more about him when I actually do a Mirror Dungeon solo run, but yeah. He's definitely one of the strongest poise identities in the game right now. And most of that comes down to the fact that he actually has a lot of unique interactions with poise. So, pretty good. I like him. Anyway, that's it for me. Like and subscribe for more videos like this one, and goodbye.